Okay, I guess we'll get to some of the wrestling for this past week. And let's go in chronological order. Last Wednesday night, AEW Dynamite. And we're not going to talk so much about the one foot in front of another of the matches and what so-and-so did and what so-and-so did in return and blah, blah, and critique the matches as matches. We're going to try to figure out what in the fucking Sam hell's going on around here. And how come it is when Tony has one idea, he wants to do it 4 or 5 different times at the same time? Have you noticed this? How many people are going to turn on their partner or their father or their brother or their accountant or their manager or whatever the fuck in this, just in a calendar month? What do you think? What's the prize picks on that?
I don't know. It'd be hard to pick a number. I mean, some of these are just so obvious that they're coming, and then they come, like the Samoa Joe Wardlow one. What's the point of doing it if everyone...
Oh, you had to bring that one up first, though. Another I told you so.
Which one were you thinking of first?
Well, I see that you can't tell. I'm thinking of Lee and Swerve. Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland.
Oh.
They're gonna break up a team that's been together for 8 weeks and had 3 matches. Somehow they've already won and lost the tag team title.
Or it'll be a literal swerve and Keith Lee turns to the dark side.
Now, hey, comments like that will get
Keith Lee becomes a heel. Excuse me.
So on this program, here come the Guns, the Ass Boys. They've got Stokely and William Morrissey in their corner. And then here come Keith Lee and Swerve, and they don't do a fist bump. Keith Lee will not bump Swerve's fist, and the announcers made sure to make note of that. And then here comes FTR, and they get a huge ovation for the most buried, hidden tag team in AEW. And then here comes the Acclaimed with a ton of applause and a big ovation because they're incredibly popular now. So we got to figure out a way to do something about that. And they figured out a way to do something about it. They're going to have an 8-man tag team match that doesn't do anything for anybody. And to make sure that we know that Billy Gunn is still mad about being kidnapped and having his fingers cut off, apparently with pliers by fucking dipshits, the Swerve. There we go. Billy Gunn runs out and tackles Swerve before the match starts, and BJ Whitmer comes out and kicks Billy Gunn out of ringside. Again, they're burying these teams in 8-man tags where I guess Tony's statistics fixation, they can say, well, here's another match in the win column or whatever the fuck, but it does nothing for anybody. It makes no sense. There's multiple issues going on here. The Guns and the Acclaimed should be working tag team matches with FTR to learn something. Along with every other young tag team in AEW, they should be working tag team matches with FTR, whether on TV or on YouTube or whatever. And FTR should be winning every single one of them, except for the Acclaimed, obviously, right now. And at the same time, these young teams could be learning something. But when you get an 8-man tag and FTR are trying to be the wrestlers, and the Guns are animated heels, and they're just green, but they got a ton of potential. FTR is flawless at everything. Swerve is pretty good. The Acclaimed are green as grass, but they've got size and personality. And Keith Lee is off and on. But this was the closest thing on the program to a wrestling match for the first part of it. And then they got some heat on Dax, so that was good because he knows how to sell. And then he hit a hot tag that was actually a fairly hot tag on Bowens. And then we started going over the hump and I'm not knocking Bowens, but how long have they been baby faces? And I would imagine that he hasn't made that many babyface comebacks at a high level. But it was odd. He's doing the looping right punches and then the backhands like Sting. And too many strikes and not enough bumps by the heels. He's just windmilling these guys and they're just staggering around. And then the heels took back over and somehow the Guns hit a big rig out of nowhere for a 2 count. FTR's moved the big rig. And then they have a 4-on-4 face-off and started an 8-way. And the referee was Mrs. Ed. So, of course, she was just staring. And it got sloppy and everybody took a lot of bumps to the floor. And then Keith Lee and the Acclaim tried something where it ended up with Keith Lee kind of powerbombing Bowens on Caster, who was bent over waiting for it. Because they got too fancy and it looked too phony. And then Lee and Swerve double-teamed Bowens, and Swerve dove to the floor on everybody. And then basically then they go crazy. And Dax superplexes one of the Guns onto the Pack on the floor off the buckles, and everybody lays there. All the momentum of the match is gone. So now, then they went from a big 6-way or a big 8-way to everybody else disappeared so Dax and Austin could go one-on-one in the ring. Then everybody else ran back in front of Mrs. Ed. Oh, Wilbur. And then Caster hit an elbow on off the top rope onto Gunn, one of the Guns. FTR hit their finish on the other Gun. Bowens pinned the first Gun. And I'll be goddamn if I could ever even figure out at that point if Bowens or the first Gun were the legal guys. And it should have happened. I couldn't even tell at that. The first half was a wrestling match. Second half was a mess, which usually happens in this company because they try to give everybody something to do, whether they're capable of it or not. What'd you think, Brian?
I know it's no DQ matches that you call lazy booking, but isn't this lazy booking?
Mm-hmm.
The 8-man tag match with the teams that don't like each other, you just throw them all out there. It's just a big mess. For what it was as good as it could be. I will say, for me, I think the Guns stole the show.
Yeah.
I can't take my eyes off them when they're in the ring. They're constantly moving and doing things. I want to see more of them.
I'd like to see them actually get the chance to be as good as they can be. Billy can teach them a bunch of stuff, but, it's not like he's going to be working with them every night in front of 500 people in Oshkosh at a spot show so they can try shit out. And they could learn from FTR, but FTR never gets a legitimate tag team match or they would outshine the EVPs. And the Guns are very good. But at this rate, it's going to take them, 5 years to have 300 matches. Anyway, the next part of the program was the highlight in anybody's book. MJF, not there live in person, doing a VTR promo from the podcast. What was it? Pardon my French, or pardon my take, or whatever. Mama Cornette used to say that when she would slip out and say a shit or damn or something like that. She'd say, pardon my French.
To you or to the general public?
Well, to me. Or to whoever happened to be around at the time. But anyway, it was an incredible interview. And I want everybody to go back and watch this again for one simple reason. Everything that he said not only made sense, it put the pay-per-view match over, it put himself over, it illustrated his goals and things he wants to achieve. But if you know that wrestling is a work, this promo worked. But if you didn't, nothing that he said outright made you realize that it was a work. And think about that's difficult to do. He didn't pander to the obsessive play wrestling fans that want to make sure that everybody knows it's all phony. And at the same time, he didn't insult the real wrestling fans that don't want the guys going out there saying bullshit, phony, stupid things. Everything he said, there was enough truth in it that people know to be true, the old Jarrett analogy, that when he finally did start working a little bit, it was seamless. You couldn't tell the difference. And he promoted what he needed to promote, and he didn't spend all of his time on Stokely and the firm. He spent his time on Moxley and his match, and also talking about how he was going to get even for all the people that keep upstaging him. Every time he has a triumph, it's upstaged by a neck tattoo, or Matt Hardy being brain damaged, or, and he said, Chris Jericho stole the spotlight from me for a full calendar year. So he knows what was going on. He just didn't have the fucking cachet in the industry at that point to do anything about it. Now I believe he does. And he wasn't talking like somebody that's about to switch babyface, which we were all afraid of because of the jealousy over him being the exceptional performer in the company now, and everybody trying to make sure that that doesn't go further so they can keep their spots. This was fucking a promo. It was fucking great. And he finishes up at Full Gear, the devil gets his due. And goddamn it, he better. His Moxley's been fine for, he's got a name from the WWF. People around the world know him. That audience and fan base for AEW likes him because he's garbage wrestling minded like they are. But I think MJF needs to win this thing and make them a real homegrown world champion that everybody's into, that they want to hear talk and want to see and want to be involved with, instead of more of the same shit that we've had from Moxley for the last few years. He's never going to change. It's the same fucking thing. Let's see what MJF can do with it. That's hopefully my prediction or projection or pick.
Okay.
What'd you think of this promo, young Brian?
I mean, he's the best talker in the business. He is the biggest thing AEW has going for it right now. It's a little awkward, I would think, for the people in the studio because he's staring right at the camera while he's doing this and everyone else is just sitting there, but that's another thing. I think we all know that turning him babyface is a massive mistake, even if people just all show up and bring their babies and say, kiss my baby. They all love him. Whatever it is, it's a mistake.
And then he looks down and he says, of course you want me to kiss your baby. It's the only time in the miserable, wretched thing's life that it'll ever have interaction with greatness. And he'd kiss the baby.
You know, this interview is a great example. And we've seen, like, people keep sending stuff in of him doing various interviews all over the place. Out of everyone in AEW, if you do put the belt on MJF, which I assume they're going to because it's the only right thing to do, which may be a clue that they won't do it, but who knows? He could do publicity. He can go out there and do every morning show. He could talk to every radio show host, whatever it may be. He could do it. It's natural. It works. And no one promotes the company better than him. Who that does publicity for AEW ever promotes AEW better than him? It hit me the other day watching something.
Well, and then also just for a new wrestling franchise to bring out its champion on a mainstream television program, and here's this young guy in his mid-20s, good-looking, well-spoken, intelligent, articulate. You can show clips. His matches are fucking great. Or you bring out this balding, haggard-looking fucking bum who people have seen on Twitter fucking rolling around in goddamn barbed wire and being bashed with light tubes and looks like shit physically and attractiveness. And he's 15 years older.
I'll take you to a dark place and drink your blood.
Yeah,
Crack your bones.
You could a person who doesn't know wrestling could buy MJF as a young, successful professional athlete. Moxley looks like Moxley, a fucking middle-aged, fucking balding, not impressive physically bum that does garbage matches. There you have it. Anyway, the only thing was, right after we saw the MJF interview, there's a video of Stokely wandering around Baltimore at night, pissed off at MJF. So there's going to be more involvement in that. I'm thinking, okay, there's a wild card. Is there somebody planning that Stokely could get all kinds of heat by costing MJF the title, and then MJF could go after revenge against Stokely's guy?
Against who? Against W. Morrissey?
Yeah, I would also like to have both of my testicles pinned down to a fucking board and hammered with a goddamn claw hammer, as well as see what I just talked about. But it makes me trepidatious. And apparently now you can say Dick Rider on television. Did you notice that?
I guess it matters if it's one word or two.
Well, what about if it's a Christian name? Guy named first name Dick, last name Ryder.
Hans Christian Dick Rider.
Hans Christian Dick Rider.
You know, the Stokely stuff, like, I feel bad for the position he's in. It's just none of this worked. And we were somewhere in the middle of the first match, and I think one of the commentators said it, and I had forgotten. The Guns are in the firm. I'd forgotten all about that. I just figured they were in this tag team feud. I forgot they were part of this clique, or this faction. I don't know. I hope this is the only thing I could kind of damper some of this MJF Moxley stuff.
Yeah, and Stokely's a good manager. I wish he could get more talent in his firm, but I hope the firm is not very firm, because the Guns need to be off on their own. Nobody gives two fucking shits about W. Morrissey or the other Page. And what's the guy's name with green hair?
Lee Moriarty.
There you go.
Hey, does anyone feel like shooting something down at the harbor tonight? Yeah, I'll go. I got nothing to do.
Well, they're having a tournament for a title shot. And that's going to be a big deal. And the first round match, round match, go ahead.
Let me stop you. They called it the Title Eliminator Tournament.
Yes.
Went back and forth the other day. We couldn't figure out what was the Title Eliminator and what wasn't. We thought it was Moxley.
That was a Title Eliminator match. But this is a Title Eliminator Tournament. And they said this was the first match in the tournament. I don't fucking know.
Okay.
What are you asking me for?
I thought maybe you heard something that I missed this week on the show.
I try to miss as much as possible. So the other Page wrestled Eddie Kingston. In the corners, Page was Stokely and Kingston was Ortiz. And the other Page won. Does anybody give a shit? You liked him at one point. Have you please changed your mind by now?
No, I still think he's pretty good.
Mm.
And does anyone give a shit? Time will tell. I don't know if they do right now. I think out of all those guys in the firm, he's one of the ones people actually have been reacting to. You know, there was a groan when W. Morrissey showed up, fair or unfair. The AEW fans kind of didn't want to see him there. We'll see if he could change their mind. They're used to the Gun Club. No one cares about Lee Moriarty. He's the only guy in the firm that actually gets a reaction from the AEW fans, again, other than the Gun Club, like they would want.
Well, and Ortiz is with Kingston because Santana's hurt, but Santana and Ortiz ain't speaking to each other anyway, so that team is done to begin with. So Ortiz was just now Eddie Kingston's second since they're friends.
And look, I know Eddie Kingston's not Arnold Schwarzenegger or anything.
Does it look like he's pudging out a bit more?
I'm not going to say that, but what I was going to say is, despite anything that is something that would cause someone to say, oh, Eddie Kingston, I don't know, they lost a moment.
Yeah.
They had over a year to try to figure out a way to capitalize on the love people have for Eddie Kingston. And he still gets a massive pop. And people still like him. And people still want to see him. And they just have never, it's the most bizarre thing. They did not capitalize in any way. I mean, it happens over and over again with different people. But nothing. I thought with him they would get something right.
Well, yes, and here's a good point you bring up. This doesn't in normal wrestling promotions, it doesn't happen often. It does happen, but it doesn't happen often that somebody on the card just gets outsize over of their push. And the people just say, oh, we like this guy. For whatever reason, an outside reason. Eddie Kingston was that Players Tribune article or whatever. Or the Acclaimed with the scissor me thing. Or the whatever the fuck. In other promotions, it has not historically happened as often as it has in AEW. And I think part of the reason it does in AEW is because this audience is so social media hooked up and things spread so quickly and they like to do viral shit or whatever. So think about it. There has been umpteen times that somebody over the last 3.5 years on this roster has gotten over in an outsized manner of the level of push they were getting, and they never do anything about it. FTR floated around as baby faces and heels and whatever, and with Tully Blanchard as a manager and blah, 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 and had great matches. But finally, as happens with wrestlers, good wrestlers, the fans start recognizing how good they are after they're exposed to it over and over. Unfortunately, over and over took quite a long time. And FTR gets over. They do nothing. And then the Bucks bail out on doing the right thing for business and putting them over in the rubber match, putting all the belts on them. So that's gone. That chance will not come again. The Acclaim gets over with the scissoring thing. And you can say, yeah, they're using them, but they're 8-man tags. And the fucking Kingston gets over because of the articles. So they, yes, he did get in a variety of backstage fist fights, but that was months and months after that came about. Who else was ravingly over at one point, just at random on the show? And then there's been other examples of fucking Wardlow.
Wardlow's the big one.
And
he was as over as anyone in the company.
Yes. And then they put him in a fucking angle with the goddamn security guards. Which would have been like, if you'd have pitched that to Vince McMahon, he would have loved it and probably gave you a raise because of the good rib. Good rib, pal. Now, what are we really doing? But yet, the people they've been pushing down our throat, and will soon again, Twinkle Toes and the Buckaroos are on their way back. Those people have been shoved at us, and they're less over now than they were at the start of the fucking program going on the air. But we can't get away from those motherfuckers. But the people that the fans start liking, god damn, either there's no plan or the plan is to make sure they don't like them anymore.
Because in what world does it work? Oh, wow, they're really getting a great reaction. Let's keep them off TV. Or they're getting a great reaction. Let's not have them wrestle for a while. Or no one will hear them talk. Like, none of the options that happen make any sense.
And either it is because Tony has written all this down in his notebook somewhere 6 months out and refuses to change anything no matter what outside forces dictate, or every time something like this happens, somebody that he listens to for advice somehow comes up with a way to bury these people and make it look to Tony like he's really using them. I wonder which is the case. Anyway, did you notice that Ortiz was looking a lot cleaner? He's lost weight. He's gotten better shape. He's groomed better. He's really, because before he was like the second coming of Pampiro Firpo, right? He's the only guy I've ever seen that had to shave his teeth.
Well, remember, he lost his hair to Chris Jericho in that big feud.
Well, yeah, but now it's coming out and it's a little more stylish. But still the hair he was shaving his cheekbones on a regular basis, I know. And holy mackerel, I've never seen a guy with hair on his eyeballs like that. But those people are out there, Brian.
Are they really? I have not heard this, no.
They are out there. I used to see some of them at the state fair when I was a kid. You'd go in the tent. Right next to the fat guy was the bearded lady, whatever it may be. But now, folks, if you want to see hirsute individuals covered with hair looking like Lon Chaney Jr. on a full moon. You don't have to go to a freak show at the state fair. All you have to do, if you're a female that is turn over sideways and look at the lump laying next to you. Men, we got to do something about all the foliage that we got. And you know, it's Thanksgiving time, it's Christmas time, it's the holidays. People are thinking holidays, eggnog by the fireplace, a little candid photography perhaps, some nookie. You never know what's going to go on the holidays. But you don't want to look like a fucking goat or smell like one. And that's why our friends at Manscaped are trying to make your holidays jolly days with the Platinum Package 4.0. Folks, you can do your little drummer boy a favor and use the Lawnmower 4.0 to avoid another silent night in the bedroom. And if you care about your sack as much as Santa cares about his, you want to make sure it's nice and slick and shining and smelling good. The Platinum Package 4.0 has all the products from the best-selling Performance Package, plus the Ultra Premium Body Wash, the Ultra Premium 2-in-1 Shampoo and Conditioner, and the Ultra Premium Deodorant. All this stuff is not only premium, folks, it's also ultra. And you know what happens when you become an Ultra Man? Why, you can do anything. It's the best way to smell fresh, from your Santa hat to your candy cane. Remember the Lawnmower 4.0 body trimmer with that LED light on it? It'll look just like Rudolph's nose flying through the sky, ready to come down your chimney or whatever tunnel or orifice or entryway, breezeway, or otherwise that you would deem pleasurable. You got the Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer. You've also got the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and the Crop Reviver Ball Toner. See
they don't provide the crop.
Fast.
Yes.
They do not provide the crop, they just revive it. But those things can solve your stanky problems all day long, folks. Once they touch your sack, you will never go back. And for the perfect stocking stuffer, the brand new Body Buffer. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The lost cousin of Michael and Bruce Buffer, Body Buffer, will come to your house and he will buff your body right there in front of your entire family. If you go to manscaped.com right now and use the code DRIVE, you're going to get 20% off and free shipping on the Platinum Package 4.0 and the ability to have the runt of the Buffer litter come to your front door and buff you off real good. And if you don't want your kids to watch it, well, send them to the other room.
Why would Body Buffer be the runt of the litter?
He's the runt of the litter because Michael and Bruce, they're so much older and more established. He's still out there going from door to door trying to buff people.
Do you remember the story about how Michael and Bruce Buffer met?
I thought they were brothers.
They say they're brothers. I mean, I'm not doubting it, but they say they're brothers. Apparently, the story goes, Bruce Buffer was watching boxing on TV and saw Michael Buffer and said, that guy looks like he could be my brother. And he got in touch and found out he was his brother.
No, you're lying.
I swear to God, that's a story, although they look nothing alike at all.
Well, no, I've noticed a small resemblance, but how the fuck were they brothers and never met each other, and now they're both big-time ring announcers? Well, I guess now Michael Buffer isn't a big-time. Have you ever seen him in years?
I think he's retired. I mean, he's an older guy.
Yeah. So how did this happen?
How did Body Buffer... What happened?
How did Michael Buffer not ever meet Bruce Buffer until they were grown-up adult? If they're brothers, if they're really brothers.
I like what happened after that. They
got the same last name, so one was not adopted or whatever the fuck.
I don't know the full in and out of the story, but that's the story. And then at some point they met, and Michael Buffer said, wow, you really are my brother. Why don't you become my manager? It's a weird story. No things
Bruce
considered.
Buffer is a better announcer than Michael Buffer. Why was Michael Buffer the one to get all the platitudes and the allocades for all you 80s NWA fans?
Because he was doing it in the 80s. And when boxing blew up and so many of those big fights were happening, he was the ring announcer. It was Jimmy Lennon, and then it was him.
I always thought Michael Buffer sucked pond water as an announcer. Bruce is great. He's got all the little mannerisms. Michael tried to be so cool, like he was above everything. Fuck him. Fuck Michael Buffer.
He introduced Bret Hart as Bret the Hitman Clark.
Bret the Hitman Clark. Yeah, he couldn't even read his cards either.
Well, speaking of body buffer, Manscaped you were talking about.
I thought we did. Oh, manscaped.com. 20% off and free shipping with the code DRIVE. So, folks, check your balls with howls of golly this year. Go to Manscaped.
How does that work? Are you supposed to look at your balls and yell golly?
Well, yes, don't you? I've had a variety of people when they saw mine went, golly.
Do you do that to yourself, though? That's what they're saying.
Well, every once in a while, it depends on what they look like.
Well, speaking of what they look like, the rest of Dynamite. Hey, Jim, what did it look like?
What did it look like? Well, the next match, there was a guy, they just came up on the ring, and there was a guy standing in the ring with his butler. Not a buffer, but a butler. And doing a cheesy promo, and it was like suddenly we were in an indie wrestling show somewhere, and a guy dressed up as a butler and the other guy who is being buttled were giggling about it.
Buttled?
Well, that's if you have a butler and the butler does his thing, you're being buttled, right?
You're being buttled by the butler?
You're being buttled by the butler. Because the butler's going about buttling. Well, if you're the one paying him and he's buttling for you, then you're being buttled. Right?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, anyway, we find out from the announcers, it's Arya Daivari. And then I realized it's Sean Daivari's brother. I've seen him years ago, know that he exists. I didn't know he worked there. We have never seen him, to my knowledge, on this television program. But they opened up a segment with him standing in the ring speaking and his butler standing next to him. We'd never seen either. And then the announcers have to explain it after the fact what this guy's name is. That's not good television. And apparently in the open TNT title challenge that Wardlow has put out, Arya is offering Wardlow his butler in exchange for a title or something. There was like a 30 or 40 second promo. And here comes Wardlow and shit cans the butler and beats Arya Daivari flatter than 4 o'clock. And of course, then here comes Powerhouse Hobbs. His music is playing and he's coming down to the ring, down the entranceway. And Samoa Joe is at ringside, actually in the ring now with Wardlow. And as Wardlow is waiting for Hobbs to come down and talking to fucking Hobbs on the microphone, Wardlow says, I'm going to win every title in AEW. And there's Joe standing there, I get with, what is he, the Ring of Honor TV champion or whatever?
Yes.
So that was such an inflammatory comment that Samoa Joe comes from behind and lays Wardlow out with the fucking belt across the back of the head or whatever the fuck and chokes him out. The camera missed the attack, by the way. The camera had cut back to Hobbs walking down to the ring. And then the announcers go, oh my God. And then they cut back and there's fucking Wardlow laying there at Joe's feet. So they knew they were going to do it and they still managed to miss it. And then again, Samoa Joe has just hit Wardlow, his tag team partner, over the head from behind. They've been a team for 6 weeks. But then Hobbs is standing in the aisleway and telling Joe, I'm going to get you too. So who are we supposed to fucking cheer for here?
The butler.
The butler did it.
Wasn't Arya Daivari the leader of the Trustbusters? Was that him?
Okay, now the Trustbusters sounds, were they on Rampage one time?
Parker Budrow or Boudreaux, whatever his name is.
Parker Budrow? Hey, no show Budrow. So, again, let's recap. Swerve and Lee are about to turn on each other. Joe and Wardlow just did turn. The Firm turned on MJF. The Gun Boys turned on their father. This is in 2 months. I know I'm missing some. So Wardlow, so again, I think you called it Wardlow and Joe to a teenage Mark playing Booker. You team two big guys up and then have one turn on the other and then they fight each other. And that's genius. And again, overlooking the fact that no turn ever makes a shit bit of difference on the fucking business, the ratings, ticket sales, pay-per-view, whatever, unless the people cared that those two individuals were together to begin with. And you don't make them do that in 6 weeks or 8 weeks. Turns come from longtime partners or longtime friends that suddenly through a championship situation or whatever have to become rivals. There has to be history behind the interaction of the people in one respect or another to make you care that one guy then turns around and stabs the other guy in the back. If they've had 3 TV matches as partners, then have you got the impression that one of these guys is going to name his firstborn son after the other guy? It's mark bullshit by inexperienced people and people that either aren't creative enough for their own good or don't have the knowledge that they pretend to have.
You know, you could have done something as simple as, I'm the TV champion of Ring of Honor, who has no TV, and I'm the TNT champion, so I'm the TV champion of AEW. Let's feud. Instead, they were put together clearly just to break them up, and it was obvious, and that's bad. But even with that, the idea that Wardlow's doing this promo, and he says, I'm going to go after all the belts, and just that little thing triggers Samoa Joe to turn on him?
Oh, God, and now you've gone too far.
What was that? I mean, it was a weird line for him to utter out, and then the reaction, it was just nothing with Wardlow since the MJF thing has been good at all. And the stuff with him and Samoa Joe just doesn't make any sense.
Well, we were at 50 minutes past the hour on the East Coast of 8 o'clock, and in the ring comes Tony Schiavone with Dr. Britt Baker and Saraya. And again, Tony Schiavone, the interviewer of the announce team, gets him in the ring, asks Saraya one question, and Saraya snatches Tony Schiavone's microphone, and Tony just wanders off and leaves him the ring. But he doesn't even leave with authority. He goes over in the corner, he checks his earpiece, he's like, should I just leave? Somebody tells him, yeah, just go. And then this is supposed to be a face-to-face confrontation between Saraya and Britt Baker where they've got shit to say to each other and they're going to air this whole thing out. And not only was this the most unnatural looking interview I've ever seen, but Britt Baker, who the one thing we've always said is the best promo on the female roster, this was fucking brutal. Saraya drug Britt Baker down to her fucking verbal level. Because they started off with the face-to-face by standing 15 feet apart from each other in this empty ring with not even old Grandpa Tony Schiavone to keep them apart if they're so fucking mad at each other. And Saraya talks to the crowd and barely even looks at Britt Baker. Did you see where they were standing unnaturally staged away from each other and talking to the crowd instead of the person that they were upset at, that they were trying to fucking chasten and vent at? And at one point when Britt Baker starts talking, Saraya kind of comes up closer and looks at her, but then they start arguing over whose house it is. And they're screaming, it's my house. And finally, Britt said, well, I built this place and I don't take walk-ins, so bitch, make an appointment. And the heel, Britt Baker, gets cheered for making that comment to the babyface. And Saraya answers Britt Baker by backing up and wandering around talking to the crowd again about how much she loves this business. I got hit by a car and wrestled because I love this business. Who cares how much you love the business? Nobody, except the small number of marks that kind of line appeals to. Nobody cares how much you love the business, chickadee. They care how mad you are at Britt Baker and how much you want to prove that you're the top girl in AEW, and if you got to go through the dentist to do it, then you're going to waltz her across Texas or something to that effect. Not go, I love this business, and you should all offend. Now I'm cleared.
I got hit by a car and I still wrestled because I love this business. Plus, I needed the 35 pounds.
They were trying to make Saraya a big babyface with this backstory, but then Britt Baker had the babyface lines. Saraya wandered around and screamed about all she'd done for everybody, and finally got a pop challenging Britt Baker for a match at Full Gear where she said, I'm cleared. But by the way, did you see the clearance letter that she tweeted out or sent out or whatever?
The undated clearance letter?
One line. Saraya is cleared to wrestle with no restrictions. And then she said, well, we're going to try it once a month as a start. Anyway, maybe she got Trump's doctor, the hippie from fucking Brooklyn or wherever that was.
Signed, Dr. Mike Lano.
There you Dr. Mike Lano strikes again. He's the clearer. Anyway, they got a pop with the challenge for the match. Then Saraya tosses the microphone down and awkwardly goes and stands by the ropes. And Britt Baker's awkwardly looking at her, and apparently neither one knew which to go first. And finally, Britt attacked her, but Saraya ducked, kicked her, and hit a modified DDT, where she almost dropped Britt Baker face first on the microphone laying in the ring, if anybody noticed that. So that would have been the third broken nose, I think, for Britt. And she screamed, this is my house! And 10 solid minutes for these two to kick Tony Schiavone out of the ring and scream about whose house it was.
You know, it was good and bad. Because there were moments where I was like, wow, look at where this is going. You brought up Britt Baker usually does a good job. If you really think about it, how many good Britt Baker promos in front of a live crowd are there? Versus how many are in the back?
But I'm still pretty sure I've seen her be better than this live. But it was like the girl wouldn't get up in her face. There was no tension between the two of them. They were wandering around talking to the people half the time.
The problem was the argument they're having. Listen to what happened with the crowd. The heel, Britt Baker, started telling the truth and never lied once, and the crowd got behind her.
Yeah.
How dare you? You were over there being a superstar. I was the one here from the very beginning, from the press conference, and I did all these things, and now you're supposed to come in here and say it's your house? How is this your house? And the people are like, yeah, you know what? She's right. And her answer was, I've done so much for everyone. Look at everything I've done and everything I've been through. It's my house. Terrible. And apparently she's cleared. Apparently she wasn't cleared when she got physical with Britt Baker on TV, and that's a whole nother story. And let's see what happens.
Didn't they admit that also? They admitted, well, we weren't supposed to, but we just kind of said, well, let's see what happens.
Because remember, they put out a story that Doc Samson cleared her, and I'm thinking, no disrespect to Doc Samson, I don't think that's what he does.
Noted orthopedic specialist, Dr. Michael Sampson.
I don't think that's his job to clear someone.
He saved Lawler from a heart attack. I'm not sure he can fucking fix Saraya's neck.
Yeah, and it puts everyone in an uncomfortable position. Let's hope she really is well, and let's see what happens. I mean, the women's division has been a major problem. Let's see if there's anything that happens here with Saraya coming to save this house that'll change that.
All righty. Up next, I would have been happy to watch Jay Lethal have a nice wrestling match, but we didn't get to see that. Trent is coming to the ring. Trent of the Best Friends, the Puddin' Gang.
I just want to point out to you, because we'll talk about the ratings later, this was the 9 o'clock hour they did this.
Yeah, it was.
Which is bizarre.
Yeah, it was. They tune in at 9 o'clock, and here comes Trent. And Lethal attacks him on the ramp and beats him up and beats him all around ringside and throws him into everything and then rolls him in the ring, and the referee rings the bell to start the match. And Lethal has now been put in a position where he has to attack a job guy from behind to get an advantage. So they have a match. Old Muffin Top Taylor showed up at ringside. That's what I have to say to you. Sanjay and the Pinhead showed up at ringside.
To me or to Muffin Top Taylor?
To Muffin Top.
All right, we'll leave it in the show.
And then Danhausen came down, and it was doomed anyway. Trent's not a bad worker. If I would have said I need somebody to put Jay Lethal over, give him 7 minutes, have a nice match, Lethal over with his finish 1, 2, 3, wouldn't have had a problem booking Trent. The attack beforehand, the miscellaneous comedy figures on the outside, the whole 9 yards, it didn't do anything for Jay Lethal, and Trent is beyond hopeless. So, at that point, Danhausen goes to curse the Pinhead, but that doesn't work, so he punches Sanjay in the nuts, and the Pinhead headbutts Danhausen, and then Lethal beat Trent with his finish. So one of their best talents actually on their roster is surrounded by freaks and comedy bullshit and needs help to beat Trent.
But wait,
it
gets worse.
All. But wait, there's more. So now here comes Tony Schiavone again with a microphone. Why didn't he just pitch him the microphone and say, you do it? I don't want to stand up. But there's Sanjay and Zippy and Lethal are doing a promo on the entranceway. And Sanjay, again, is too over the top. He's screaming. No credibility has ever been given to Sanjay Dutt on this program, that he's a legitimate force or factor in anything. And so he's just screaming, and it's too over the top. And he introduces Jeff Jarrett. Now Jeff Jarrett, the second week in the company, and Jeff Jarrett is now affiliated with all this comedy bullshit by association. Jeff Jarrett. And if anybody doesn't like Jeff, I don't give a shit. He's still a fucking name that people have actually heard of. And you're going to, within 2 weeks of him showing up, he's involved with Danhausen and the Puddin' Gang and being represented by Sanjay Dutt with a pencil behind his ear. And putting over Jay Lethal verbally when Lethal just needed all kinds of help to beat a fucking job guy. Jeff Jarrett will make no difference in this program, on this screen, here or in this company, if he's associated with anybody here, opponent or friend, except for Jay Lethal. And it may be too late for that because they pretty much buried Lethal. He's a non-entity now, and nobody's going to take him seriously at this point. And then, just to make sure that it really sucks real big donkey cock, they make Jeff phony too at the end of this because, for whatever reason, they decided to show on camera, like they always do in every interview, one of the production assistants behind the camera wrapping Jeff up. And Jeff said, what are you trying to do, wrap me up? Didn't they do this bit like a month ago with somebody else? And they show the guy on camera wrapping Jeff up, and Jeff draws the guitar back and doesn't even hit him. The guy runs off, and Jeff chases him to ringside, and they go to the break. Phony as a football bat. So what? If he did hire Jeff for an office job, I assume Jeff is like, well, I'll take his fucking guy's money. But he's got to know by now that he will be a complete non-factor as an on-screen talent because this is completely ridiculous.
There's not a single thing that could be done to make Jeff Jarrett a factor on air. Fans do not want him in 2022 on this program, especially calling himself the last outlaw. All of a sudden, he's dressed in a different way, and he's got his cowboy hat, and he's the last outlaw. I don't think
he's changing things up.
You know what? I don't think anyone wants to see this. And
hey, you know what? I don't want to see him on camera either. I want to see him behind the fucking scenes being the head of talent relations to show Tony Khan how to keep the goddamn wrestlers in line. But if they're going to put him on the fucking program, since he is a better wrestler than 85 to 90% of the roster, and since he's a bigger mainstream name than 80% of the fucking roster, do something to get something out of him.
I don't think there's that. I mean, that's the thing. I think he drives people away.
Oh, come on.
I'm serious.
If these people will watch this fucking show, they'll watch anything. And Jeff Jarrett could have a better match with any main event talent in this company than any of the other main event talent in this company. He could have a better match with Danielson than anybody else. A better match with fucking
I agree with you.
Moxley than anybody else. A better match with anybody than anybody else. Pay him fucking $50,000 a week and say, just put everybody over from now on. Teach him something.
$50,000 a week?
Well, whatever. I'm just bring him out every week, have him do a 20-minute job for everybody on the roster. Everybody would pay him for it, and everybody on the fucking roster would be a better wrestler, and they'd have a better match than they'd had in their fucking life.
But it's not about the good matches. That's the problem. I think the way Jeff Jarrett's been used over
this
his
show
career,
isn't about good matches either. They don't ever have any, so let's teach somebody something.
I just don't think viewers will accept Jeff Jarrett. I think too much has happened over too long a period of time that as soon as he comes out, the fans that watch all the awful shit in AEW that we hate, like the best friends. I mean, look at what they think of them. They're being used at the 9 o'clock hour. The people who like that shit, even they groan when Jeff Jarrett comes out.
But they'll watch anything. You've just proven that. They're watching the best friends. They'll watch it because it's AEW. If they don't like it, they'll watch it to complain about it.
People had the same reaction this week that I had last week. As soon as Jeff came out for this thing, it was like WCW and TNA.
Yep. And I'm telling you, he ought to be running the office. But instead, they're putting him on TV. Well, if you're going to put him on TV, don't make him a fucking flunky. Try.
And I agree with you in terms of his talent in the ring. I don't think he would have the best match with necessarily everyone, but I agree with you about his talent, and he's an upper echelon worker. However, his talent, his value to AEW is behind the scenes in whatever role that is. If they're going to do house shows and have him be a big part of that, that's something he could really help with. But he's not helping the on-air show.
I tell you what, that might be the best job in AEW, one behind the scenes where you don't actually have to go out and fucking show your face on that show and admit that you're a part of it.
Yeah, did we ever see BJ Whitmer before this week?
I think he was in a pull-apart a couple months ago. Okay, Moxley and Regal were in the ring, and Moxley did a promo about MJF, and I'll just say this. If you buy Moxley, this was great. If you don't, it was long and boring and the same fucking thing as always. Did I pretty much describe that?
I agree with you for the most part, and I can't stand Moxley as a wrestler or as a promo. I just think he's ridiculous. But with that said, I think this was one of his better promos for a little thing. Instead of doing the usual, I'm going to crush your bones and eat your brain, whatever the fuck he does, he stared at the camera, didn't move his shoulders, just stared at the camera, straight on, and said, I've been to dark places. You think you're rich. I'm a multi-millionaire. Like, because he was looking right in the camera, we never see that. We see him wobbling around the ring, making all these crazy comments, and I thought that made it stand out a little more.
I can see that. True. And yes, he has been to a bunch of unsavory places in Cincinnati. So.
Is Cincinnati really that bad?
No. Well, I mean, there are places you can go to goddamn Hattiesburg, Mississippi and get your fucking guts cut out if you go to the right place at the right time and say the right thing to the right person. But I don't know if it's goddamn Escape from New York level bad up there right now. Anyway, the next match was Jamie Hayter versus Sky Blue. And you like Jamie Hayter so much, and I thought, okay, I'll give this a chance. And within 30 seconds, they were out on the floor running each other into the ring post and then getting right back up. The fucking girls, you can't be posted now and knocked out because the girls don't sell it. So I think Hayter won. Am I correct?
Hayter won, and we forgot Sky Blue on our roster because she wasn't on the roster page.
Well, I thought, wait a minute. No, there's another Sky.
There's Io Sky.
That's right.
But that's another company.
He's part of Kai and Sky.
She's part of Kai and Sky.
That's right. Well, all these people. So, and apparently now Ricky Starks is on the shit list. I was bumfuzzled at this.
Yeah, he liked Punk.
Well, that's true. That's right. Son of a bitch. He was one of the people quoted in that article. Yeah, Punk, big help to me. Well, we go to Officer Bar Brady in the back, and Lance Archer is standing there. He's going to do a promo, and Starks is on his knees beside Lance Archer, and Archer is manhandling him and cutting a promo at the same time, treating Ricky Starks like a small child. And when, from off camera, Starks' arm reaches up like he's going to try to fight back, Archer just reaches down and throws him headfirst into the fucking garage door gimmick and says, I'm going to win this tournament for the title shot, and walks off, and Marvez screams, we need help, with that much emotion. So Starks, now what the fuck? Why would you could do that to any job guy? I mean, it's overdone to begin with. It's completely phony. And Archer's been doing it since the start, which is why he never got over, throwing around supposed job guys and production people and fans over the rail, whatever. But now you're going to treat Starks like a fucking dumpling?
Like Mustafa Ali. He's the Mustafa Ali of AEW, the way they're booking him right now.
Yeah, the other night when Brock just fucking pitched him over there. Or was it Lashley? Lashley pitched him over the goddamn deal like a fucking... So...
Again, another guy got himself over. Good fiery promos, either as a heel or as a babyface. Turned babyface after the fans started cheering him. Bungled the feud with Hobbs, and now they're using him like this. This is a guy that could have been, I don't want to say a top babyface, but he could really talk. Fans are into him. He's into what he's doing. They could have done so much more with him.
You know, and to be honest, since they broke his neck, that was the final moment, because they brought him back after a while. I don't know if his neck was good, because if you were healthy, there's no reason to only wrestle once every goddamn blue moon. But we never saw him for a long time. And then the whole thing with Hobbs, and now this is... Maybe he's hurt. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. They haven't ruined a top talent. They've ruined an injured talent.
But even if he's hurt, using him like this with Archer, again, Archer hasn't really been around. And even when he was around, we've kind of seen his full potential.
Wait a minute. He landed on his head, too.
Yeah, he did it to himself, though. It was him doing a moonsault.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, somebody German Starks and broke his neck, whereas he just...
Adam Page.
Archer did a moon... Yeah, Adam Page broke Ricky Starks' neck, dropping him on his head. Whereas Lance Archer just fell on his own head. A lot of head trauma on the part of the booker. And finally, we come to our main event. 2 out of 3 falls, Bryan Danielson against Sammy Guevara with Ty Meloconti. And, okay, I'll go for 2 out of 3 falls with Bryan Danielson. And Sammy ain't bad when there's a veteran in there to calm him down and keep him from killing everybody. And this was an athletic match. And I don't know whether it kept the ratings or not better than what they've been presenting over the past several weeks. It probably should have. Bryan Danielson in the main event. I would think people be interested in that. But it was a match, it's certainly better than a lot of matches they have on this television. I don't know if it's a big old main event. But it was, again, Sammy's a full-fledged heel now, and he still does all of his fancy stuff, but he's more heelish with his personality. But he gets disqualified on purpose in the first fall, rattling Danielson with a chair. And then apparently... I don't know if that was supposed to get the juice and didn't do it, but then he gets the PA microphone and bashes Danielson over the head with it about 12 times. And when we come back from the break for the second fall, Danielson's bloody. And then Danielson finally hits his finish and evens it up, or I'm sorry, Sammy hits his finish and evens it up 1 fall each. And then third fall, Danielson big comeback, back and forth. Sammy went for a backflip off the top rope and missed completely. Danielson had to reach out to the side and then just fall down. So, of course, they replayed that. But then the people, as they went home, the people were into it, back and forth and trying for submissions or hitting moves or whatever. And right when Danielson gets the label lock and Sammy's trying to fight out of it, and Danielson's trying to fight to keep it, and he really cranks back, and my DVR froze, which meant they were 30 seconds away from the end of the fucking show. I assume Sammy tapped out. Am I correct in this?
I believe so, and now you're making me question it, which is sad. I don't remember the finish of the main event of AEW Dynamite, but I think so.
Well, there you go. One of these days, they're going to go straight off the air without getting the finish in. But that was AEW Dynamite. I mean, at this point, Danielson and Sammy is a good match, but I was so fucking depressed from the previous hour and a half that, all right.
You want to talk ratings?
What are or were the ratings for this fine fiasco that they did the other day?
Let me get the overall number. The overall number, 930,000 viewers.
Okay, that's a little bit down for their aggregate from last week, but did they start high and end up very low, or was it more flat throughout?
It's pretty much anything. I'll put it this way. It's consistent with what's been happening, and it's something that anyone who's been paying attention to what's been happening could have pointed out this is exactly what's going to happen. Started off, 1,078,000 viewers for FTR versus the Acclaim. Was it? Yeah, it was FTR versus the Acclaim versus the Guns versus Swerve, right? Or was it?
No. It's an 8-man tag.
Oh, 8-man tag. FTR and the Acclaimed, versus the Guns and Swerve. 1,078,000. That's the high point. Quarter 2, the end of that match, MJF's promo and the Stokely video, 949,000 viewers.
Ouch.
Quarter 3, Eddie Kingston versus Ethan Page, as well as the Dark Order and Rush's confrontation backstage, and Wardlow versus Arya Daivari, 941,000 viewers. Quarter 4, Samoa Joe turning on Wardlow, and the Saraya Britt Baker face-to-face segment, 955,000 viewers, so they go up for that one.
And by the way, there was, I'm sure, interest in what the girls were going to say to each other.
Absolutely. I think that's actually one of the few things on this show going into it that people were curious about. Quarter 5, the 9 o'clock hour. Jay Lethal versus Trent Beretta and the Jeff Jarrett promo with Jay Lethal and friends, 912,000 viewers. Quarter 6, Jungle Boy's promo, Moxley's promo, and the Elite's mysterious video, 888,000 viewers.
Ouch. By the way, I forgot to mention the Elite video. They show them disappearing in a puff of smoke or in flames from every clip they show, and I'm just wondering if that can be their new gimmick. They just show up, they get introduced, and they disappear in flames. I'll watch that.
Always the victims. I think that's the gimmick. But quarter 7, Jim, Jamie Hayter versus Sky Blue, as well as Brian Cage and Dante Martin having a video, and the Lance Archer attack of Ricky Starks, and the beginning of the main event, 854,000 viewers. And finally, the end of the 2 out of 3 fall match, Danielson versus Sammy Guevara, 861,000 viewers. They're driving people away from this show each and every week. People start out, and they say, I've seen enough.
Well, I tell you what, I think they need some help. Maybe they've already got help, but I think they need better help. You know what? I think all of us could use a little better help. And folks, by the way, this show, not only this show, this episode, but many of these shows are sponsored by BetterHelp. They are brought to you by the fine folks at BetterHelp so that you can get better help. That's why they are a sponsor of ours. And right now, if you go to betterhelp.com, that's H-E-L-P, you will find that what we've been talking about is true. It is easy to find a therapist, to switch therapists, to find somebody to talk to. They have not only the largest online therapy service in the world, but they have professionally licensed and vetted therapists that are available 100% online. It's affordable. And whether it's a career change, a new relationship, becoming a parent, any of life's challenges that are hitting you right now, it's normal to feel stuck. It's normal not to be able to figure out what works for you because life doesn't come with a user manual. So they can help you manually. They're very manually dexterous, and they can manually help you learn productive coping skills and figure out the cause of your challenging emotions. So, once again, as the world's largest therapy service, they've matched 3 million people with professional therapists. They can do the same thing for you. You fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched up with somebody. If things don't click, you can switch to a new therapist anytime. No waiting rooms, no traffic. You can learn more and save 10% off your first month's services by going to betterhelp.com/JCE. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/JCE. Boy, I tell you what, Brad, if you or me came with a user's manual, an instruction booklet, I wonder how many pages we would have in our particular manuals.
18.
18? You figured it out?
I've been thinking about it.
I want 24.
Why?
I don't know. It's just an even number.
Are you including like a blank page at the end just to even out the pages?
Well, that's for notes.
Oh, good thought.
That's for notes.
Good idea.
But life ought to come with an instruction manual, but then again, you probably wouldn't be able to read it because, goddamn, we got our brand new thermostat on our brand new air conditioner and furnace in our brand new remodeled room. And it'd been me, Stacy, a contractor, 2 carpenters, and Harley Quinn, and none of us could figure out how to work that fucking thing.
Sounds like you need someone to talk to.
I need somebody to come over here and fix my thermostat. That's what I need.
Well, we can't get that from BetterHelp, but you can certainly have someone to talk to.
That's right. If you're hot or cold, call somebody else. But if you need somebody to talk to, call BetterHelp. Well, actually, don't call them because they don't have a phone number, at least not one they've shared with us. Go to the website, betterhelp.com/JCE while you're at it. I wonder if they give their home phone numbers out.
Absolutely not.
Well, Brian, now that we've got all that information imparted to the folks, what's going on in the world of the wrestling news and Arcadian Vanguard this fine week?
Another fine week on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Get information about all the shows on Twitter at Superpodcast or on Facebook at facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. Of course, also on YouTube, youtube.com/Arcadian Vanguard. Few notes, the wrestling news every day, covering the wide world of professional wrestling and bringing it to you for free with a daily newscast, minus any opinion, just the facts. Dragnet would have approved of this podcast, The Wrestling News. Hear it today at thewrestlingnews.com or wherever you find your favorite podcast. Look for Arcadian Vanguard's The Wrestling News and get your wrestling news you can trust every single day.
Cleaning woman Clara Clifford discovered that kleptomaniac Claude Cooper from Cleveland was the one who copped the clean copper clappers kept in the closet.
It was a good performance by both men that day.
Yes, but what else are you doing?
I don't know how you want me to follow that. You all of a sudden start doing bits from fucking old television shows. Anything else? Have you watched any Jack Benny lately?
Yes, as a matter of fact, wow.
You got the whole Jack Benny thing going in your early press photos, where you have the 3 fingers on your face.
Oh, yeah, the whole Jack Benny thing going. It was very, very useful to me.
Of course, also this week on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon. This week's guest, popular 605 Super Podcast guest, Vandal Drummond, Kurt Brown himself. This week on Shut Up and Wrestle, a fun conversation. People have been raving about it. Lots of Dr. Jerry Graham stories. Hear that today. SUAWpod.com or look for Shut Up and Wrestle wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And of course, the 605 Super Podcast. I don't even know if I can do this with my throat. The Mothership! There are so many people in the house with no idea what just happened. Go through the archive today at 605pod.com. Available wherever you find your favorite podcast. Something in the works. Stay tuned. But the 605 Super Podcast, The Mothership.